And welcome back to our Vidéocast series. Today I'd like to speak to you a little bit about the glorious scientific age we are living. It is Albert Einstein that said, I'm sure many of you know this quote, "Science without religion is lame, but religion without science is blind." Very profound statement made over half a century ago, and we haven't done a thing about it. We're still separating completely religion and science and treating them as almost warring brothers. What I feel personally is that in the field of religion we need to be more scientific, and in the field of science we need to be more spiritual. This is not a new discovery. Actually, the first scientists that ever came to Earth were called yogis. They're still around. But they experimented, instead of in a lab, on their own body and consciousness, and they discovered remarkable things. They realized that by moving the body in a certain way, by applying a certain pressure on a certain gland, by breathing in a certain way, by concentrating the mind in a particular way, they were able to produce a vast array of different emotions and states of consciousness. These revelations, these teachings, were gradually passed down to the disciples, who wrote them down and systematized them until it came, for instance, the great Maharishi Patanjali, who is the author of the famous Yoga Sutras. The science of yoga took form at that moment. It existed forever before, but it really took form when Maharishi Patanjali systematized these teachings in the form of sutras. Sutras are very short, concise little formulas that are designed to be memorized. They're not so easy to understand because they're extremely condensed form of teaching. But under the guidance of a master and with the practice of deep contemplation, these secret scientific techniques can be gradually unlocked. The science of Kriya Yoga is the direct inheritor of this tradition of systematizing scientific discoveries and applying it to the body, the mind, the consciousness, and examining the results and showing, look, if you put your mind to this, you put your body in this posture, if you hold this state of awareness, if you lead your life with this kind of principles, if you choose this kind of food, this is the result you can expect. But don't believe us. Practice it and see for yourself. Centuries later, the new scientists, the ones with a white lab coat and the little rabbits in the cages, started to discover, ever since the 1930s actually, that yes, there's a profound relationship between the way we hold our body, the way we eat, the way we live our life, the way we rest, the way we enjoy or not enjoy life, has a profound effect on stages of consciousness, on health, and on communities. These studies, these experiments have gradually taken on even a greater scope when they started realizing that consciousness is actually not limited to one brain. The mind is not the same as the brain. The brain is a transmitter of energy called mind, but the mind extends farther, much farther than the brain. And this mind is actually the same that is vibrating in other people's brains. But the individual brain colors it, gives it a particular agenda. And that is why we start losing a little bit the commonality of life. And we start separating ourselves and creating a lot of chaos for ourselves. Because we're not realizing, I'm the same mind. It is just projecting a movie that is slightly different in my own brain. For instance, four friends, and go to see a movie. And one is crying because he finds the movie really emotional. Another friend is laughing because he's thinking, this is really funny. It's the way they portraying the situation. A third one is bored, stiff, and the fourth one is just peacefully contemplating. Then they come out of the cinema and they compare the experience. And they realize, we've seen 4 different movies. 4 different reactions. Why? Because their consciousness has been activated in different way under this stimulus. This projection of light on a silver screen, these sound waves coming out of some speakers, this experience they shared was completely colored by their own material, their unconscious material. And this is why we go through life with a very rich diversity and variety of experiences and a lot of misunderstandings. So to have different brains coloring this unique consciousness is good, because it provides the variety of life, the beauty of creation. If we are all always attuned to exactly the same frequency, well, creation would stop pretty quickly. But because of these experiences and these filters that we have, called ego, it makes life extremely colorful, rich, but also very chaotic at times, very confusing. If we had a way to return to the original source of the mind, what would happen to our existence? Would it become colorless, boring, uniform, like maybe a communist regime, as some people imagine? Or would we tap into the very source of all joys, all experiences, all colors, all forms? That is something that is worth exploring. And there is a technique, there is a methodology to return the mind to its original state, to this consciousness. It is something called meditation. Now, when I use the word meditation, we have to be a little careful, because it means many different things for many different people. Again, because of the filter of the brain, of the ego. For instance, in the Christian religion, the word meditation is found, but it means reading text, holy text, thinking of holy people, remembering divine grace with a concentrated, focused mind. That is meditation in the Christian religion. If you go to the East and you listen to people talking about meditation, you quickly realize they're talking about something entirely different. Meditation means no mentation, no activation of the mind. It is returning the mind to a completely I'll wait a little bit for the taxi. So if you come to the East and you hear people talking about meditation, you quickly realize that they're talking about something entirely different, because they are not talking now about making any kind of activity with their mind. Meditation, in fact, to them means no mentation, not a single wave occurring in the mind. Returning the mind to a place of complete quietness and stillness. And that is what we call yoga. Yoga is the science of achieving the meditative stage. So what happens when we are in this meditative stage? Some people call it samadhi or paravasta. There are many ways that it can be described. What happens? The mind returns to its essence, and it has now access to every single possibility. It emerges like out of a cocoon and seeing every single possible field it can explore all at once. And instead of choosing, well, I'm going to take this form, this shape, I'm going to have this name, I'm going to have this body, I'm going to have this disease, I'm going to have this age, I'm going to have this family, this education, this kind of feat, it has everything at once. And it revels in that revelation. It realizes, oh, I am vibrating in this blue flower. I am singing in that tree. I am flowing in that river. I am cold and solid in that rock. I am at the farthest end of the universe, and I am the tiniest little molecule inside this body. This is the mind of contemplation, the mind of meditation, how it rediscovers itself. And it is a source of constant wonder and awe and love, because this mind realizes, I have created all this for my own enjoyment. There is nothing that I have not already created, that I have not experienced. But I have deliberately veiled myself with a thin veil of illusion, which I will call Maya, just so that I can enjoy a little longer these different shapes and form and phases. But at any time, I can again awaken to my infinite potential and embrace myself. But I think I like to separate myself from time to time, just for the joy of returning to my original state. Now this mind, it is what we call God. There's absolutely no difference. What people think of God with a white beard, sitting on the golden throne in the seventh heaven, it is that mind that has returned to its original consciousness, its infinite possibilities. That is God. So God is a very scientific concept. It is something that can be experienced. It can never be described. What I gave was a very poor approximation metaphor, which is really not doing justice, but that's the best we can do for now. But what I want to invite you to do is discover for yourself if that is what you realize when you learn a technique of meditation, such as Kriya Yoga, for instance, and see how your mind returns to its essence day by day. It doesn't take long. A few minutes a day is enough to refresh yourself. So I wish you the best in your continuing journey, and I'll meet you there. Hariom. And in the field of science, we need to be more spiritual. This is not a new discovery. Actually, the first scientists that ever came to Earth were called yogis. They're still around. But they experimented instead. And welcome back to our videocast series. Today I'd like to speak to you a little bit about the glorious scientific age we are living. We're still separating completely religion and science and treating them as almost warring brothers. What I feel personally is that in the field of religion we need to be more scientific. It is Albert Einstein that said, I'm sure many of you know this quote, "Science without religion is lame, but religion without science is blind." Very profound statement made over half a century ago, and we haven't done a thing about it. In a lab on their own body and consciousness, and it's discovered remarkable things. They realized that by moving the body in a certain way, by applying a certain pressure on a certain gland, by breathing in a certain way,